The Bobcat Outsider is brought to you by Adventures of Shane and Laura. Come join the fun as we explore Montana, the national parks, and beyond. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bobcat Outsider, the show that brings you Bobcat football from a fan perspective. I'm your host, Shane Driscoll. Last week, the Bobcats lost a tough one to the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota. This coming week, the Bobcats will take on the Thunderbirds of Southern Utah. We'll talk both of those games and the bigger picture in this week's episode of the Bobcat Outsider. First up, the rewind. Here's what I had to say last week about our matchup with North Dakota. I think that this game's going to shape up great for the Bobcats. On offense, I think that this is a great opportunity for the Bobcats to get that run game back going. It's going to be key for the Hawks to limit that run game if they want a chance to win this one. Boy, was I ever wrong. Although the Bobcats were able to make the same amount of total offense as the Fighting Hawks, 316 yards, they were held to only 12 points, falling 16-12 in that contest. Though the run game performed relatively well, they were not able to overcome a couple of crucial mistakes. There was that one deep shot that would have led to a walk-in touchdown had it not been dropped. And then there was that punt that wasn't fielded and ended up at the 1-foot line, eventually leading to a blocked punt and touchdown for the Fighting Hawks. The defense really showed out in this game and did all they could to keep the team in the game, allowing only 10 points. Unfortunately, that would not be enough to overcome the mistakes. I absolutely loved the improvement in the Tucker Rovig run game. On that one read option, he gives the guy the stiff arm and then just lowers his shoulder into a whole pack of Hawks. Way to energize your team, Tucker. And I also want to give Troy Anderson a shout out for continuing to put the team on his back despite continuing to nurse that what seems to be a high ankle sprain. I also want to be sure to give some love to Demarius Hosey and Lane Sumner, who showed up pretty big, wig Isaiah Ifanse and Troy Anderson were very limited. So I saw this picture of this amazing downfield block that Hosey got on that big play that he sprung for like 50 yards. And so I was like, who was it that set that block up? So I went back and watched that play again. And sure enough, Logan Kleinhans is preparing for that block and Hosey just hammers him into the defender. So Hosey's just kind of putting forth the kind of effort that you like to see out of a guy like him or Isaiah Ifanse, where they just are ready to do whatever it takes to get to that next level. In the end, though, this loss, for me at least, hurts a lot more than the loss to Sacramento State, who is a surging team right now. The Bobcats' offense looked pretty disjointed for most of the game, and they really were never able to get something going. And I also just really didn't feel like the Bobcats looked very good on special teams. Sadly, we will probably have to say goodbye to that number 8 seed that we knew would be important for us to make a big surge in the playoffs. With that loss, the Bobcats fall to 5-3 overall, 2-2 in conference, and to number 14 in the Stats FCS Top 25 poll. And now time for the scouting report. The Bobcats look to get back on track this week as they welcome in the Thunderbirds of Southern Utah into Bobcat Stadium. The series is currently even at 3 wins apiece, the most recent being a Thunderbirds win in Cedar City in 2016. The Thunderbirds struggled to start the season, losing 7 of their first 8 games, although 4 of those losses were to top 25 teams, and 1 was to FBS UNLV. Suddenly, as the Cats prepare to play them, Southern Utah looks like a team on fire, beating Idaho State 59-34 last week in Cedar City. Southern Utah cornerback Carlton Johnson earning himself Big Sky Defensive Player of the Week honors for his 2 interceptions, including 1 long pick 6. I went back and watched their game against Weber State as I figured that would be a team that was more like us than most of the other teams that they played. And what I took away was that their defense and special teams was very salty, especially a punt that they nearly blocked for either a touchdown or a safety. They seemed to be really committed to that run game, really trying to get that inside run game going. But they looked best when they started to go tempo and really mix in some of that passing. Coach Choate gave a great analysis of their defense in the press conference.
When I look at them on defense, they're kind of multiple. And really for us, we see a different defense anyway every week. Maybe the exception is like a North Dakota because they are so aggressive anyway. But, this isn't a team that on paper has a high blitz percentage. But if you're watching us, you're probably going, bring field wave as much as you possibly can and see if they have an answer for it. And so I think this is a defense that's improving week in and week out. It's hard to decide if they're, their base is kind of a 4-3. You'll see them play 4-2-5 nickel against lighter set teams. They'll get into some odd stack at times. Really, they're more multiple in their coverage looks than they are in their front. Not a heavy blitz team, as I said.
And now it's time for some key matchups. I think that the Thunderbirds' salty defense really could pose another problem for a struggling Bobcat offense. Will that front seven be able to slow that run game down just enough? And I think I'm learning that that's all that a team has to do. They don't have to completely stifle the run game. They just have to slow it down enough to where the Bobcats have difficulty. Their third downs are long, and they have difficulty converting those. If they can do that, then this game could go the Thunderbirds' way. And now time for some players to know. The Thunderbirds are led by number 8, sophomore quarterback Chris Helbig out of Holy Family High School in Thornton, Colorado by way of Butler Community College, where he threw for over 1,600 yards and 16 TDs. He averages about 250 yards per game passing at a completion rate of about 65%. Helbig's favorite target is number 14, Lance Lawson, out of Red Mountain High School in Mesa, Arizona. He's listed as a running back, but he only has 15 rushing attempts and 67 receptions. Not targets, receptions. He leads the team averaging about 70 yards receiving per game. It'll be important for the Bobcats to know where this running back is at all times. On defense, watch out for number 8, Carlton Johnson, a redshirt freshman that I mentioned earlier for his Big Sky Player of the Week defensive honors that he earned for his 2 interceptions, one of those being a long pick 6. The 5'11 cornerback hails from Rancho Verde High School in Morena Valley, California. He played 4 games last year and was able to snag a fumble recovery in that limited time. The kid is a turnover machine. And now for some keys to the game. The Bobcats have to get their dominant run game back, and this may just be the game for them to do that. The Thunderbirds allow a league worst 213 rushing yards per game, whereas the Cats lead the conference in offensive rushing yards. For the Thunderbirds, they have to do what everybody else does and pack the box and just try to force the Bobcats to beat you through the air. No easy task, however. This game will serve as the Ag Appreciation game as well as the Pack the Place in Pink game. So if you have a pink parka, be sure to wear it. Kickoff is at noon Mountain Time, and the game will be carried on Root Sports. So if you've been relying on Pluto to get your Bobcats football, know that this week you will not be able to do that because Root Sports does not allow the Big Sky Conference to stream the games that they cover. So you might want to just wander down to your local sports bar and catch the game there. And now it's time for a look across the divide. The Grizz were looking at a rough start, behind 17-10 halfway through the third quarter against Eastern Washington this weekend, until a few key plays really swung the momentum. First, on 3rd and short, the Eastern Washington safety found himself completely out of position, and once Marcus Knight got 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, there was no one to try to stop him the rest of the way on a very long rushing touchdown. Then it seemed that the Eagles could not get a punt off cleanly or protect Barrier in the pocket the rest of the football game. The Grizz then went on to avalanche the Eagles, ripping off 24 straight points and winning 34-17. The Grizz moved to 6-2 overall, 3-1 in the conference, and number 8 in the country. And now it's time for an outsider eye view, a broader context of the Big Sky Conference and the FCS in general. Weber State and Sac State continue to prove that they are the teams to beat in the conference, each of them snagging wins away from home. Sac State steamrolled Cal Poly, beating them 38-14. And then Weber goes to Davis and beats the Aggies 36-20. This sets up what will almost surely be the de facto Big Sky Conference championship game when Weber travels to Sacramento next week. Be sure to catch that game at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on Pluto.tv. And finally, Northern Arizona squeaks by Portland State on a last-second field goal in Flagstaff. And now it's time for outsider opinions. Over the past few years, the Bobcats have put together a very salty defense, they've recruited superior talent, and they've put together a very dominant run game consistently. Unfortunately, there's one other thing that the Cats have done consistently, At this point, it seems to me that this is something that the Cats have to just try to mitigate. This is not something that they're going to be able to completely get rid of, because it just seems to be a feature of how this team works. Unless and until they can do that, they're not going to be a top 5 team in the country, which is a place where I think a lot of fans think that the Cats should be. And now it's time for the shout out of the week. If you're not listening to the R&R Cat Cast, you should be. They put together a great conversational fan-based podcast that feels like you're just talking with a couple of friends. Go check the Ryans out at the R&R Cat Cast. Do you have an organization, product, or event that you would like to feature in the Bobcat Outsider? Send me an email. I'll leave my address in the description below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at Shane Driscoll. You can always find the most knowledgeable, most thorough, and best researched Bobcats and Big Sky coverage on Skyline Sports at SkylineSportsMT.com. As always, the Bobcat Outsider is brought to you by Adventures of Shane and Laura. If you love Montana and the national parks, check out the YouTube channel that chronicles our adventures around Montana and beyond. If you like the video, be sure to leave it a like. If you want to see more like it, click subscribe. We'll catch you next time. And until then, go Cats!